Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Coearth, and everyone for inviting me here. Uh, Today, the very interesting set of presentations are happening since morning, and it was interesting because we were referring Bijoy's work as a case study for our practice. The kind of insights Abid also shared, and Chakrabarti sir also shared about the education was interesting. And on the similar platform, we have started practice. We never knew that we will be doing some school projects also, and we are very fortunate to get this opportunity. We have to point it on this side. So I'll start with the story that is actually shaped our practice also. It is about the first project that we got. It's a kind of a village which is in the outskirts of my second tier city, which is called, I'm from Nasik. And from 60 kilometers from there, there is this village called Sabarpada. So there are almost 100 houses, and there is red color is the place where their primary school has been placed. So government has this ZP schools which has been placed to all the rural areas. And this is what the village look like. You come from the other side, there are mountains and the farms at the other side. You cross the entire village, and at the end of it, there is a small school where there are 40 students and 2 teachers, 1 principal and 1 teacher, are teaching this primary education to the students. And the blue one was the government prototype that they generally has it for every villages in Maharashtra that we are having it. And this is the first picture I saw because after the school, there are all the farmlands of the villages. So you have the farming lands and beautiful mountains at the back. So what to do as an architecture was in one of the criteria there. So this is the yellow one. The lower photograph shows you the what government prototype. It's a hexagonal room with the 1 cube attached to it. It's a typical prototype they have, and the rest of it is the playground for the students. And these are the trees which are planted by the kids that has been grown now well, and every tree has a name. So they have a different association with it. And the project was very small. I was just started my practice. One NGO came to us and said that, can you design a compound wall and 1 extra classroom for these kids, because there are only 2 teachers. We have 1 classroom, so can you do it? And the compound wall is not for the security. It is for the farm animals not to enter into the school premise, because there are some activities which are happening in there. So this was a typical classroom that they had. They had the 1 classroom there. So the senior students sitting on the floor, junior sitting on the benches. They have all this information hanged on the walls. They have everything painted on the floor, because there is a scarcity of, to have the better educational systems that they could get. So the teacher has invented all these things. So everything has been painted. Students are writing on the floors and walls and everything. And I was amazed looking at that. So actually, we used to call this architect Bhushan, because he has built this beautiful dam. There you can see the underpass, the kind of canals, everything he has done. And everything that they've been learning is actually by doing it. It is not that they have been teaching the dam, making of dam onto it. So they know how the soil works, how the water works, how the curve works, and everything they knows about it. And so after connecting with a lot of students and the villagers in there, we understood that they have a freedom in their mind. And everything they explore is with the experience, and the co-learning is the key. So yeah, the older student teaches the younger student, and that is how the group learning was happening. Not the teacher every time is looking for all the classroom that is to be happening there. And as a very young graduate architect from the college, I was looking at all the vocabulary of architecture in the village, that there are mud houses and the Mangalore tiles and the wooden beams and columns. And we were like, we have to do something with it so that the school could work out after like that. And we were doing it, but nothing happened. One day we were just moving around the village, and we mapped this. The yellow was the pathway that we moved around, and we understood that there are certain the houses are square and rectangle, but the spaces between are so flexible, so inviting. There are shades happening, there are nodes happening, there are pauses which are happening. So can we have these ideas rather than the physical ideas from the village? Can we incorporate it? And then we started making, because they wanted a compound wall to be designed, we started making a compound wall as an enclosure. So can that be a place which you can design and becomes the classroom also? And we develop it further, and can you go back? One slide? One slide? Yeah, and then it got developed more further, that the compound wall becomes the ramps, and it also has the classrooms into it. And then we used to have such meetings. Initially, being an architect, I used to explain them what is the idea for us. The Gram Panchayat meeting happened, the students happened. You can see nobody smiling. I don't think so they ever liked our project whenever we presented in front of them. And then we decided to do the compound wall rather than this way and decided to paint it from inside because they have no stationery or the education material available. So we decided that there could be writable surfaces for permanently that could be given it to them. And then we developed it further. We made this model and went to the side. The yellow the dress girl is my teammate. And look at that red dress here. That girl has almost rejected our project. She has like, after all this education of this architect having, they don't know how to make the buildings. Nobody smiled at once. After 7, 8 models, in the 6, 7 months of the period, we took to the site and show it to them. And then we drew it on the site. We decided to make this building because it's so flexible, interesting, architecturally. There are elements. And we drew it on the site. And we asked the students to go and take the places in the particular plan. And then I realized one thing, that more it was architecturally flexible as a shape, it was more rigid to experience for the students. So you can see how the circle they have occupied. They were very awkward into the space that has been offered to them. And unfortunately, but for us, fortunately, COVID came and the project stopped in between. And there I realized, because I was in contact with the villagers, so there are a lot of issues. The village has no other facility. There is no health center. There is no community center in the village. So we never knew that there is an unsaid brief always behind every project that we should able to do through the research. And then we understand the necessity of the disaster management, community spaces, and festival celebration in the same place. And then this is how the unsaid brief we have decided to taken forward. And then we again started from the zero, because it's a COVID, we redesigned the project because we got this time. So there was an hexagonal room which was there, so we decided to keep the one community space inside, becomes the school gathering also. And then we put this circle, as already decided, we painted it black from both the sides so that could be writable. And we put the one rectangle that could be a flexible covered space for educational purpose and also for the community purpose. And all these semicircles which has been introduced because there are different trees which are planted by the student itself. So we took them inside the classroom. So that's why the semicircle courtyard has been introduced to it. And there was one question I missed initially when that girl was actually looking at the model. The model was, for us, was very fascinating. So she was like, can I climb on the wall? I said, you can't climb on the wall. I was like being educated, having so much of education architecture. I was like, no, you can't climb on the wall. You have ramps and everything. And then somehow in the process, we realized that she knows more than us. The questions are better from the student's side. And there we chop the arches in inverted way, walls in the inverted arches, and that's at all the places where you could see the house at the back or the tree at the back or the mountain at the back, and that's how the first image like. So because of the houses that the lady could easily see that the kid is actually studying and playing in the campus, and it becomes very comfortable for them to look and move around. And that's how the entire plan happened. Then you have the concave surface here. There is a tree planted, so we just made a pause so that teacher could park their vehicles, and also that could be an evening gathering space for the villagers. You enter into the space, which is amphitheater, and then you have that covered space. This is completely open, so we introduced 2 cupboards which could be locked by the teachers so that all the information could be kept inside. And that's the simple section. It's a load-bearing building with the floating roof because it's an NGO, we have a very, very low budget, so we have to work out with the whatever material we have. This was the final model we have given to the site. And this is how they started gathering it. So this becomes an information board. So Gram Panchayat meeting is happening in the evening, has been written over here. So it's a notice board for village now. And then you will see the way they're actually climbing on the walls, because we never knew that they will climb it. We never knew that. We always think the gate is the only way to enter into the premise. There could be another ways to enter into it, and this is what they have occupied the space they wanted it to be. And it's a simple building with that circle. We have painted it writable walls, and the playful areas and the floating roof on the top of it. There's the old and new that has been gathered into, connected into it. And that's the whole space. The momentum of the circle we understood has a more freedom. So the children could choose their ways to do it. And the way they're occupying it, and way, even if after the school they're into the spaces, that's fascinating to see for us. And we have demonstrated this because the NGO was not ready to do the community center. We said the school, let be the school be more effective for the all other activities for the community, and that's how we showed these graphics. These could be a classrooms, you know, you can sit inside, you can see the sky outside, because it's a clear story. Even if the metal roof, it doesn't get heat up, the air flows easily on the top of it. And when it was the inauguration day, and we just announced that you can write on the walls. So they all ran towards wall and drew it, and that one girl came and said, I never drew an elephant of my size. And this was the fun moment. We never realized that what, you know, freedom which could be, or which could give to the kids, and how innovative they could be, how dreamy they could be. And this is the learning moment for us. This is the learning moment for all my teammates and everybody that we taught. And there are certain ways you can't be calling that the spaces could be so open. You have to keep it, there should not be any gray spaces happening. So you can see certain walls are lower, so the villagers passing by can actually see. And children also climb from the wall and enter into the spaces. And that's how the tree inside your classroom. And that's the excitement, you know, from your classroom, you're able to see the sky outside. That's what is important. How the sports and recess activities would happen. And we wanted to click the picture of the building, and it's not possible to do it, and that's the happiest moment, that there is always the people who occupied the spaces all the time. And we never knew that upper space will be used. It's almost that he's occupied that space, and we were a little worried. But for the city parents won't allow their student to go here. But village, it's very normal for them to build into it. And that's how the public engagement could able to happen this way. And and if there is a temporary health care, because it's a well-ventilated temporary shed, could also be possibly happen. And this is the first event happened where we also invited. So we just click. The interesting fact is, because of those arches, there are people standing at the back. So the building is not restricted to what compound otherwise we call upon, and then they are sitting on it. The building flows beyond that wall. And that's how the wall has become the information and the, you know, welcoming board for the event. And that's where when the public event happened in the school, which is engagement is happening in there, and the way you can understand the scale they are able to connect to the wall, floor, and everything becomes very, very interesting. The different small pathways to enter your own classroom that we have decided to do. Can you play this? It's a small mobile video. So we never knew that this could be a slide also, because of it's a load-bearing wall. It was thick enough to slide them. Now it's been 1 inch down in the last 3 years. But we were very happy that the wall is writable, wall is playful, wall is walkable, and so many things. As an architect, I have no vision about the wall. I always thought wall is something that divides the spaces into it. And there some certain readings we started doing there, which I wanted to quote this one by Kevin Lynch, is the openness. The openness of a space is not so much a matter of how few buildings stand upon it, but rather how open it is to freely choose action of its user. Openness is a product of physical character, but also of access, ownership, management, and the rule of expectations that govern activities. This is a behavioral definition. A space is open if it is allow people to act freely into it. And that's where if it's open to sky, doesn't mean it's an open space. Is it open to ideas? It is open to dream. Is it open to do a lot of activities into it? That is what the openness that we wanted to do into it. And we call it a spatial allowance. You know, one of my teacher from Nasik used to tell me that you can't be giving freedom to everybody. Not everyone knows how to handle the freedom. So there is a little line between the self-awareness about the freedom, and that we call it as a spatial allowance. So can we at least allow somebody to act freely, and there still be a certain pattern to behave also. And this is what, if you see the different photos, how the children make their own way to relate the scale and how they fully occupy the spaces that we're looking for. And these are the pictures, the two pictures that we have clicked. This one is from the architect that we'll be referring in the later slides. There, can we really ask how students look at if you go from the stairs, they actually choose to walk on the ledge rather than walking on the stair or the street. So can we actually read? For them, the elements are different, not like us, the way we read it. For them, the railing is very different. For them, the tree is very different. The way they know this, they have hanged to them to this, they're using the swing, they know the weight, they know the wind, they know the act of the tree, everything they know, and that's how they're actually gaining a lot of references into it. Second project, which was also very small, which also one of the NGO came to us, and it is a library. Initially, it wasn't a library as a project. So we started with this. So we have got this site here. It's a village not very far away. It's a 15 kilometers from my city, very close by. And it's a huge village, some 250, 300 houses in there. So yellow is the temple, which is in the center of this village. And then there was one dilapidated structure in the blue, which was a building there. So one of the NGO came to us and they said, this is the building. They said that we wanted 2 reading rooms because lot of older students wanted to apply for MPSC and UPSC. They do not have a place to read at their home. So can you design a reading room? So we call it Abhyasika. Otherwise, so one for girl and one for boys. That is what they were wanting for. And then we got this plinth. This is the existing project. And when we demolished the dilapidated walls, we got to know that the plinth was in a very good condition. So we decided to keep it. So that's the context. We have a huge temple canopy. So most of the villagers go for the labor work in the city, and half of them go for the farming. And all the elderly people and the students and the young kids are actually in the entire daytime be in the village, and they actually occupy this temple premise. We accidentally found, so this is the, in front of it, the red was the plinth that we got. So we decided to keep the 2 reading rooms and 1 courtyard in between into that. And there is the emergence of unbuilt happened. So how can we, like Bijoy also was telling us about the in-between spaces or the threshold spaces and how important those are. But we understood a problem, that unsaid brief that I've already talked about, that they were doing, there is no interest in the education. The village is not very keen into the higher education or the better education. So we decided, and we asked NGO to keep a library also. So we introduced the blue color small space where you can have a stacking in the library area, and the yellow one is the public space where the elderly can also come for the newspaper reading in the daytime, like that. And then the idea was simple. From all that canopy of the temple, they could able to see the colorful books. The idea of the library for these kids is not there. So I want them to see the colorful cover books so that they want to enter in the library rather than keeping a closed library. And then we kept the 2 study rooms. So those study rooms only have the vision from the top. So they can only see the sky and the trees from the outside. So that was the simple thing, and the section happened, and this is how it's been developed. More it is going to develop into it. This is the picture from the temple. And there are 2 classrooms, 1 pavilion at the front, then a courtyard in the center, and the back. At the 10 number is where you have the stacking area of the books. And that's the way we develop a model, took to site, see to it that what kind of a light for the good reading space could be able to possibly done. And that's the plan that has happened into it. Simple section into it, it goes down. We did the arches not because we wanted to do the arches, but because we wanted to have the bigger opening so that they could able to see the books. And arches is the only economical way of doing it, because we have a low budget project. So that's why we did the arches, and it helped really well to develop into it. And further, and everything now you'll see is in inbuilt furniture, because community canvas, all the wooden cupboards, everything has been taken off by the villagers. So we decided whatever social projects we are going to do, everything is inbuilt furniture that we are trying to do into it. And that's a simple idea of the classroom and reading pavilion that could able to do into it. So this is how it looks from the temple. You will able to see the stacking area at the back, and there are simple area, so the elderly who were actually sitting in there could able to come in the center. And that's the flexibility that they are entering into the space. This is how they can occupy, so the grandchildren can actually come and sit with the grandfather. That's the flexibility we wanted to provide to them. And there is the kids teaching inside. There is this open space. The library gets open. It has two shutters also. Whenever librarian comes, then only it gets open. That's the space within. And that's how they are sitting inside with the little controlled light and the good ventilation into it. And that's how the public space and the concentrated spaces has been divided. So they have no direct vision, but there is a sort of connectivity between the spaces, and that's how the space allows people to connect. And as I told you, the stacking area has the shutter, so when you close it down, it becomes a blackboard, and then for the evening time, it's a night school for the females, and also for the kids. So you just shut it down, and there is a classroom. So our whole point was, how can you do the minimal carbon footprint and utilize it more for the educational and public purpose into it. Certain more pictures, how they gather it, how simply these levels allow them to sit and concentrate and be a part of the space. So after this, we were getting a lot of projects which are related to the school, educational spaces, and also about the community spaces. So there is a certain process we decided to follow, which we were already following in the studio, is that we started with an inquiry. So if you know who is the user, what is the typology we are looking for, then you ask a questions. Always there is an unsaid brief we never knew, client also never knew many a time. And can you challenge the notion which notional you are following, that what Chakravarti sir has said, that classroom where notionally is keeping the same format. Why can't we challenge the notion, ask it, and then you theorize your standpoint, from where you can do the architecture about it. And so the next project, which we completed around 2 years back, is the Hivali school. So Hivali is a hamlet. It's in the Sahyadri mountain ranges. So we start with the critical inquiry with the context. So it is the Sahyadri mountain ranges, and from 70 kilometers from Nasik, we have this small hamlet which is surrounded in this mountain. And this is this 25 houses. I'm calling it a hamlet because it's a very small community, group of houses that forms. They have their occupation as farming only. And this is how the black basalt stone, brick, and the sloping roof of the Mangalore tiles, or in the metal sheet they are using into it. So red was the site, technically a site, which was the topmost farming land which has been given by one of the farmer. They donated the land, said that you can build a school here. And this is what we got. The yellow was the one temporary tent where the school was, the previous school was happening. So this is the hamlet, and there we got the site on the other part of the mountain. So you have to climb. So this is, after our site, we have got the steep slope as on the top of it, there is a mountain. And lower part, you get farming lands which are going down towards the road. And this is what the first picture we got from the client. This is the existing playground. The red one was the site that we got, and you'll see the steep mountain at the back of it. So the idea, user here was very interesting. The person in the yellow shirt he's named as Keshav Gavit. If you can Google it, him, or YouTube him, Hivali School or Keshav Gavit, he is one of the excellent teachers who has already been very famous. So I met him, he's very young, 16 years he was leading this school in Hivali, and he making the students, all of his students could able to write from both the hands. It is 1st standard to 7th standard school. All of them could able to write from both the hands, English, Marathi, Hindi at a time. They could able to know all the tables till 1,500. They know all the answers, critical mathematics solutions they could able to do. Every morning they do the farming, cleaning. They make their own bicycles which run on the batteries and everything. All these are pictures. They have their own garden. He said, we have nothing less than the city. So he created his own lawn and fantastic garden around his place. This was his old school, which the roof got collapsed, so they shifted to the tent. But the way they have arranged it, so all the roof has covered with the educational information. Entire floor has been covered with the roads. So if you tell them, I wanted to know the National Highway 43 route, they will keep all these stations on the streets. The first standard or the second standard students will teach. In between them, there are the games has been painted. So 2, 3 of them sit together and solve the game. So it's a daycare school which runs like very interestingly throughout the day, 364 days. They have three idiot room. They have an interesting library that they have sought for themselves. And it's much better design. And since last 6 years, they were using this tent because the space that they were using got collapsed because of the kind of a construction condition it has. Still inside that tent, they have created their own world because it's a collaborative learning. Older students are teaching younger ones, and everything was happening in this collaboration. When I was doing it, I came across with this book called Tota-chan. It's a Japanese book, and it is about a girl who, in World War II, she used to go to a very interesting school, and then she explained what was the activities of the school. So there are different courses, and I was actually got fortunate to see the play, a Marathi play, which was running in Maharashtra, and it was presented fantastically, and I got to know certain very beautiful ideas from that book. And I gifted this book to sir because it's very similar to what he is also doing with his students. So the critical understanding of learning, then it starts with now we know this user, we know the context. Now the question is what makes a place a school? I think sir has given his answer. I will try to have my, we try to do what small thing we could able to do as a place of a school. And then Bijoy also mentioned for this that Louis Kahn said this, that there are a bunch of people sat together and then they started discussing, and nobody knows that who is teacher and who is student. And actually schools were originally a sharing platform. It were never a dictatorial platforms. And if you see the formal setups, which has never changed, so somebody stand in front, it is dictatorial the way you sit also. Everything, the setup, the room, the kind of opening, the kind of design is very dictatorial. And nowadays it is becoming more and more facilitator. So you are giving the corridors where nobody can wait. You have to go to library to read a book. You have to go to canteen to have a food. So there is, you can't meet your friend in the corridor. You can't be sharing a food in the some places. You can't be hiding from the teacher to some of the places. So there is no certain places which are forming in there. So can we actually challenge the notion as a designer? Can we take a simple stand because we know the user is amazing here. So can we have an opportunity to do that? And we were looking at their ideas of collaboration. So, you know, the boy standing, sitting there is teaching the maths. The girl is little in the closed environment because she's teaching the music to the other students. And then Herman Herzberg, what Abid also showed the project also, he has very interestingly wrote. One very important feature of the Montessori school, what he showed the photographs of, is that everything is openly displayed and available so that you can be inspired by what is there. The teacher says to you, so what are you going to do this morning? I don't know. Well, come back after 10 minutes and tell me. And then you look around thinking, is this something for me? Is this something for me? Do I want that? And you choose something that, and you inspired. And that became the inspiration for how I make suggestions to the school users in my practice. So this is very important when he actually mentioned it, that how can kids take their own stand and inspiration for the schools. And this is how he then crafted. He says, give an opportunity to them to use it. The way you don't have to place the chessboard on the table and all the four people are standing, sitting next to it. And that's the same school that he mentioned about the Montessori school, where he talks about the freedom is not only about the emptiness. It is about the ownership. It is about the way of behavior into it. And these are the certain ideas that we're looking for, the scalability of it. You can see below the staircase, there are small library which has been introduced so that the kids could relate to the scale into it. And that is where, after all this research about user context and the schooling, we form our own intent. And that was also driven by the idea which has coined by Louis Kahn. It has been mentioned in this Unlearning Architecture book, that to and through spaces. So we generally, when we design the schools, we talk about the classrooms first. But the through is the place which is more important. So where will I meet my friend? Where will I tell that my mother scolded me yesterday? How can I hide from my teacher because I have not done the homework? Where are all these spaces? And there are these three questions are important. How well is the building integrated to its life setting? How clear is the navigation through the building? Are they meaningful, enjoyable, and inspiring? Are they just means to cross or something more than that? And there we started negotiating with our intent and pragmatic, and we started making a models which talks about how students will enter, where will they meet, and we further took the model, discussed with them, discussed the idea with the teacher. They have a clarity of thought, so they used to ask us a lot of questions on whatever we used to design and made. And this is how a lot of meetings has been made into it. And then what we finally did was, because we got a very longitudinal plot and there was a steep mountain at the back, we decided to keep the water moat so that the surface runoff could be collected at one side and that be taken down and school could be safeguarded. Then we decided the modular blocks so that even if in the future they wanted to expand the building, the module could be repeated. And we place it diagonally so that you get the better space in between, which we call it a through space. And these are the modular blocks, and the wind can also flow because we are in the windward side. Heavy winds come from the bottom. So the wind can also easily flow through the spaces. And we made it U because it's a load-bearing wall, so it becomes more stable. Windows are very expensive affair, so we can't do the windows. That's why it becomes also a courtyard in a way for the ventilation and the better light. And these are, and at the back, the yellow boxes has been crafted because of the water moat. It's not just a wall, it becomes a plinth, which can be crafted as an amphitheater, indoor amphitheaters for the students. And this is how the entire project has been imagined. All these rooms, not rooms actually, but the enclosures are for the computer room, library, science equipments, and the game room. And the rest of the classroom happens in between. So there are no defined classrooms that has been happened into it. So you choose your own path. So because there are different entries, so kids could choose their own navigation to enter into the building. They could run, and if the class is boring, they could actually run out also. That's the possibility that they could able to do. The simple project, the plinth has been taken. So the overall height is 8 feet. And the plinth has been taken 3 feet above, so kids got the 5 feet height. So that is a very relatable height for them. Because we always design for our scale. For kids, it's a different, they wanted to go to under the table and do a lot of activities. So similarly, we try to change the scale into it. There's a simple section that we followed. This is the final model we took to the site and checked the light quality and the other aspects about it, and this is how it finally looks. So it's there is a ground in front, and you have a different ways where the wind can flow. And this is from the side. So we just painted it, we kept it exposed, and we just painted it in a soil color so that, because it's a local bricks, we are not able to use the very heavy bricks into it. Locally available stone basalt, all the water has been taken down to the soak pit that we have created at the bottom there. And this is the way they could navigate into their space, they could enter into the way. And this is where this free flowing through space where there is a freedom of teacher to use the way you wanted to do the classrooms. And that's where the relatable scale I was talking about. So it is almost a 5 feet for them. So most of the time they are on the plinth. And the reason we this plinth has been made in the cow dung floor because it's a daycare school. They have 2 hours to sleep in between. So we just created climatically, no benches are going up. So all the materiality also came from the way they're using the building. And it's a very simple way. Folding doors are all painted in a black. There are certain blackboards we added. These rooms could be completely open and the library comes out. You have the coated at the back that takes the light inside. And you can control the openings, you can, sorry, go ahead. And this is the way you come out, you have your own space to sit, relax, to read a book in your own space, the way you're connecting to the sky outside. And that's where that single teacher, Keshav Gavit, could able to manage the 70 kids in one axis. So the freedom is also organized, it's also been controlled, so he's could able to see it. There are group learnings which are happening into the spaces around it, and very simply how they occupy, and that becomes the convertible. So when he comes, the group of students are doing, some are playing, some are doing math, some are doing some history readings, and these are the doors which they started occupying into it. And very informal way of classroom is happening into the teacher, so with different times we used to it. So his own, Herman's, one of my favorite sentence is this: I like the design column, and if the school is going to paint one red, one blue, that's not my problem. But I think the structure of the whole thing should have some sort of clarity. You have the rules of the game and then the game itself. Like he's specifically saying about the football. Football has the rules. All the games have certain rules. But then you have a freedom to choose your moment in the field. So can we allow students to give that freedom in the school? And it still has certain rules. I'm not saying that you give them anything. I'm saying there could be a rule book, but they should be able to feel the freedom in the space itself. And that's where now actually the NGO wanted entire building to be plastered. I told them that this community doesn't know how to use the plaster because their houses are not plastered. They nail everything on the walls, and this is how they started doing it. So we only plaster where blackboard is needed. Everything else, they have started occupying it. This is 1 year back. I got this picture of some or other person or my friend are visiting the school. They're sending me this picture. Now you can see the entire roof has been painted. This is 7 p.m. in the evening, the way the classroom was happening. And this is what the recent picture, 6 months, I think 4 months back, they've occupied the entire space. What I think Sir Chakrabarti sir rightly said, schools are designed twice. This school has been already taken over, is designed by the Keshav Gavit. We were just the tools to design it once, and this is where the building is almost vanished. Interesting part, can you go back? Interesting part, the teacher and the student are at the eye level. Even if they're sitting on the labs, they're sitting at the sharing, the idea of Louis-Kahn, what he's talked about, is already started happening there. And that's where now this is the actual, now you go, there is no building at all. It's all the way they have adopted the building, the way they have created their own space in the building. In itself, architecture cannot change anything. What it does, do it to prepare the way for change, and that is what I think through this, after this design, we understood that this is a smaller stand as a designer or an architect we should be able to take to any project that we are looking for. The last project that I would like to present is the Belgav Daga School. It's very recently complete. Now, because we were doing these schools in the rural areas, there are no certain corporation rules. And I understand the freedom we got, and what Bijoy sir was talking about, the kind of criteria that the urban school has, the kind of university or the government is asking for the particular rule. Room size is also given, library, everything has been dictated and given by the rule book. And it is the similar school that we got. It is close, it's also in the outskirts of Nasik, but not in the rural areas. So it's a Belgav Daga is a town, it's a small town that close by to Nasik, and there we got this school where there are a lot of rules, and the teachers are also very conventional. They're not very motivated to, do certain teaching. So we got this school, range of classrooms in one row. There were 8 classrooms for primary school, and there was one junior KG classroom in there. This is a civic square, so you have a temple, government office, healthcare center, and a school in the chowk. And then they wanted us to do this. They want because the entire ground is been facing to southwest side. The harsh sunlight comes in the daytime, so they wanted to design something on the southwest side so that the shadow could be fallen off on the ground and they could able to use it. So we started following the ideas that they were actually telling us that what is to be done. And the idea here was not to design a classroom again, but all the other activities like library, science room, computer room, activity rooms, they wanted to have. So we designed it in a pattern of a village and a fragmented ways so that we could find more covered spaces in between in the daytime that they could able to use it. And that those are connected with the corridors which are also flexible to enter upon. And that's how we have been diagrammatically thought of entering into it. And at the end, we place the amphitheater at the end. So the first you get an arrival where your parents could wait for you when you're coming out of the school. Can there be a place for parents also? In the city school, there is no place for them. Can they sit there, wait for their kids? There is an amphitheater which is also connected to the street so that the community can also use it. And then there are the 3 set of courtyards which are facing towards the old school. So even if the old school is developed in the future, this becomes a part of it. And this is the whole diagram. So you have the 2 public spaces in the front and the 3 different courtyards. So further you go ahead about it, it's a small section that because the site is little lower, you take a stair of flight and enter into the different spaces. And that's the different 3 courtyards. One is for the reading spaces. One is for this is the courtyard for the playing, and that is for the sports activity, which is relatively close to the junior classroom. And this is the opening from where you actually arrive to the school. That's the small landing, a pause point for the students, parents, teachers, everybody to enter into the space. And that takes you to the slowly deeper down to the project. And here you enter into the corridor which opens into the amphitheater and to the school. So every time you are into the corridor, you're either having a courtyard at one side or the other side. And that's where these spaces happens, where the open classroom as an idea. We also given deep corridors for them to use these spaces. One courtyard has a big tree, so the classroom could possibly happen in the outdoors. And so this is how they started occupying the spaces, because the way spaces were behaving, I think this was comfortable to sit inside rather than outside. Sorry. And this is the way the pauses has been happened. So, you can meet your friends, you can sit, you can have tiffin with them. The library has a different volume so that you could have these shelves, and the vertical openings was the idea that students could have the different openings and enterings to the building. They could jump from the window and come inside the space. And this is the complete transparency of the vertical windows that from first courtyard to the last courtyard you're able to see into the project. And that's how they actually enter into the class whenever they want to. These are the deeper corridors so that you could use it for the different purposes. And then in the morning time, this is the shaded courtyard. So morning lessons happens in a very simple way. So their closed classroom could be taken out. So we are actually having the set of rules what government has, the kind of classroom, but then in between spaces has been designed that way. So they could use it in a way. And the simple way that it could connect, create better shadows, and climatically also comfortable for them to move around into the spaces, and the way they occupy it into the different manners. So this is the art room. So what we did is to open it to the courtyard and make the sliding shutter so they could write the games. Art room becomes the part of the courtyard whenever they wanted to make it. And this is the last courtyard, which they wanted to have the small games and everything happen there. And this is the arch, because the principal has already seen the community canvas, and project came to us saying that we want arch in the project. So we have to fix this idea somewhere in between, but it worked well for them also. So these are the different spaces that has been occurring and places connecting. This is the public space outside that has been connecting to the community. The workshop that is happening, even if the school is shut, it is open towards the street. And that's where the community is simply using the threshold of the project, and the whole idea of setting up the context for them to, explore, not only students, but the teacher also, to explore was the idea that we're trying to do into it. And this is what we believe in from the first project, that first life, then spaces, then building. Other way around, it never works. And being an architect, we started other way around always. And this makes a lot of sense for what we're trying to do in the building. This is a small step me and my studio wanted to take into the projects that we are getting into it. And this is all my team. Most of our office is filled up with this and less space for the people. But these are amazing people out there who made this practice possible. And thanks to the PK Inception is because of them. And thanks all of you for listening me.